My name is Jim McGillivray and welcome to the Pipe Box, your source for all things piping. If you find this video useful, please give it a like and subscribe to this YouTube channel if you'd like to see more videos like this. Today I would like to talk to you about the very significant topic of moisture control in your bagpipe. This is an instrument that likes a little bit of moisture, but too much and we have a big problem. We're blowing warm, moist air into our bag, which then transfers it to our reeds and up into the drones and the chanter. After 20-25 minutes, and especially in slightly cool conditions, moisture begins to accumulate in various places. It starts to accumulate on the outside of the drone reeds. It starts to condense inside the drones, and when it condenses too much, it runs down into the reed. Your chanter reed can get wet, the reed seat can be soaked, and the chanter reed will eventually soak that moisture up. All of these things are devastating to our music. They make us play out of tune, they make reeds shut off, our chanter reeds don't last very long. We lose our ability to play in tune, and that is a musical disaster. So, how do we know if we have a moisture problem? First off, check your chanter reed. Is it wet to the touch? It shouldn't be. Even though there might be some humidity or moisture in the cage, it should not be wet to the touch. Is there moisture accumulating on the reed seat here? If there is, that's an indication that you could have a moisture problem. Wipe that moisture off. Check your drone reeds. Check the outside of the reeds. Moisture will often condense on the back of the reed, and generally that's not a big problem. But when it begins to condense on the tongue, then we have a problem. The drone will go out of tune. Third thing to see if you have a moisture problem. Take the top of your outside tenor drone off and put your little finger up inside. If your finger comes out wet, you may have a moisture problem. If any or all of these things are true, you may have a moisture problem. I have on the table in front of me a whole host of solutions to moisture problems, and I'd like to give you a tour of them. I'm not going to discuss installation and such. I just wanted to let you know what's out there and how these systems can help you control moisture in your bagpipe. First off, let's talk about simple water traps. This is a stock valve. This is actually called a moose valve. It's not the only one of its kind out there. There is a knockoff. This fits into the blow stick stock up into the bottom where it tightens in, and it does two things in there. One, it has a valve on the bottom. Two, it traps moisture along the top so that when you're finished, you can turn your blow stick stock upside down and dump some moisture into the sink. That's the simplest type of water trap we have. The second simplest is the tube water trap. This has a cup to fit onto the bottom of your blow stick stock. The tube travels to the back of the bag, and there are holes in the end of the tube. So the air goes into the tube, out the holes at the end, and moisture condenses in the bottom of the trap. When you're done playing, you pretty much have to turn your whole bagpipe upside down to dump out your water trap. This will collect a lot more moisture than the simple stock traps. And as I said, there are various versions of this. This one is produced by Bannatyne and has a bottle with a sponge on the end of it that soaks up additional moisture. This one is produced by Highland Reeds and has the same concept, just a little more formal container for the sponge. So those are basic water traps. They collect mostly what's dribbling down your blow stick, although some condensation occurs in here. So if you're not a particularly wet blower, for many pipers, this is all they need to control moisture. Some people need a lot more. So let's look at the next stage. Now we come to a class of moisture control systems that actually insert into the drones and use a desiccant to control moisture for us. A desiccant is a material that takes moisture out of the air. It can come in many forms. It can come as little pebbles. It can come as beads or gels, but they all serve the same purpose of removing moisture from air. In the 1980s, an Australian piper named Jeff Ross realized that he could use desiccants to help control the moisture level in a bagpipe. Since then, the idea has really caught on, and there are a myriad of moisture control systems out there that use desiccants. I'm going to show you two of them right now, specifically meant for moisture control in your drones. This one is made by Highland Reeds, again in Arizona. Bruce Hitchings runs that company. One of these goes into each drone stock. It can be hemped up and inserted into the drone stock, or you can use one of the cups to fit over the hemped portion and then put that in the bottom of the drone stock. Inside this chamber is the desiccant. So the device plugs into the bottom of the drone stock. The air comes into the chamber from the end. The moist air passes over the desiccant, and much of the moisture is removed, and then the air continues up into the reed. After 2 or 3 hours of playing, the desiccant will tend to become saturated, and at that point we take it out of the tubes and we dry it. Various desiccants have various ways of being dried. Bannatyne also has a similar system, which they call their Dri-Flo. Same concept. 3 devices that insert into the drone tubes. They can be hemped, or you can use a suction cup. One caveat about this kind of moisture control: we don't have a desiccant on the Chanter reed. If we're using one of the stock type of water traps that inserts into the bottom of the stock, we're collecting some moisture on top of the trap, but vapor is still going through the trap and into the bag. When we use one of these and one of the drone stock type desiccant systems, we're controlling the moisture in the drones perfectly, but we're blowing moist air almost directly onto the Chanter reed. What I like to use if I'm using one of these drone insertion type of desiccant systems is the tube water trap. That way the air is coming into the bag from the back, and you will find that your Chanter reed does not get quite as wet. If your Chanter reed is still getting wet, you may have to move on to the next step in moisture control, which is the canister system. Canister systems are hardcore moisture control, but tens of thousands of pipers use a canister system of some kind. The first one, again, was developed by Jeff Ross in Australia, and I'll show you that one first. The Ross Canister System consists of this canister, which is filled with a desiccant and has holes where the air gets in at the bottom. Tubes fit onto the canister. These tubes then attach into the bottom of the drone stocks. This one goes into the bottom of the Chanter stock, and it sits in the bag like this. The air cannot get into any of the stocks. It cannot have access to any of the reeds without first going through the canister. Bannatyne has a similar moisture control system, canister system. They use a different kind of desiccant. This is a gel bead. Needs to be dried in the oven. The Ross system can be dried in the microwave. Again, the Bannatyne system uses tubes that attach into the canister. These tubes can be attached onto the bottom of the stocks using the suction cups, or the cups can be taken out and you can hemp the tenon. Chanter hose, 3 drone hoses. Air cannot get to the reeds without first going through the canister and the desiccant. Really effective for moisture control. Have a look at this diagram of the Ross system just to see exactly how it sits in the bag. Myself, I play a moisture control system without the Chanter hose. I like the moisture control on my drones, but I like a little bit of moisture in my Chanter reed. My Chanter reed never gets wet. It's never wet to the touch, and very rarely is there moisture on top of the reed seat. I also use a tube water trap that again puts the air into the back of the bag. That's the scoop on moisture control systems. They're extremely important to top pipers everywhere. Bands. Controlling moisture is one of the most important aspects of keeping your bagpipe in tune, aside from just learning how to tune it in the first place. So these are your options. Look at them, think about whether you need a moisture control system or not, and see what's on the market. That's it on moisture control systems. Until next time, I'm Jim McGillivray at the Pipe Box. Good piping.